I got a second chance at life, and the first thing I did was cut the lifeline for my comatose hubby Mike while he was sprawled out in the hospital bed. Why even try to save him? Bringing him back just meant he'd keep his mistress messing with me, pushing me into a dark place, and making me think about ending it all. The new me went by the name Vixen Becky. Who gave you the green light to pull the plug? Mike's mom, Doris, barged into the hospital room, fuming. Tough luck for her, she was just a step too late. I had already signed the papers to stop his treatment and personally yanked the oxygen tube from Mike. He'd been in a serious car wreck yesterday. After the crash, the doc declared him brain dead. But somehow, 6 months later, Mike miraculously woke up, proving that the saying, "bad folks live forever," was spot on. Back then, I had no clue he had a mistress or that he crashed while grabbing her a Valentine's Day present. So when I heard about his accident, I was shattered. I threw all our savings into his treatment, even taking out a massive loan. I swallowed my pride, borrowed money from family, brought him healthy porridge to the hospital every day, massaged him, and kept chatting away. Who would have thought the first thing Mike would do when he woke up was to ask for a divorce? He said experiencing life and death made him realize life's short, and he didn't want to hold back anymore. He wanted to chase true love. I couldn't handle the blow and couldn't stop his abusive behavior or his nasty moves with his mistress. Embarrassed, I went along with the divorce. Mike promised during the divorce he'd cover the debt from his treatment, but after we split, he flipped the script, saying the debt was on me since I borrowed the money. The pain from Mike and his mistress pushed me to want it all to end fast. So I didn't read the divorce papers too closely, naively thinking no one could be that shady. But in the end, all that debt landed on me. Mike always took Doris's advice. The house we lived in was under her name, and most of his paycheck went to her. I got Nada in the divorce and had no way to pay off the debt. As soon as my family heard about the split, they started knocking for their money back. Some of the loans were co-signed by my folks, and the relatives hounded them. Every day, debt collectors came knocking. My mom had high blood pressure and was hospitalized several times from the stress. My dad, feeling embarrassed in front of family, turned super cranky. One day he lost it and tried to stab Mike with a knife but got arrested instead, spending 15 days in jail. Our family was a wreck, chaotic and miserable. I felt utterly helpless, spent each day in tears, sank into deep depression, and less than a year after the divorce, I took my own life. Then, out of nowhere, I was reborn to the day after Mike's accident. Mike was still fighting for his life, exactly when the money was most needed. Last time, I took on that huge debt for him today. This time, of course, I bailed on the treatment. I watched coldly as the numbers on Mike's heart monitor hit 0. Revenge felt surprisingly satisfying. Doris couldn't believe it as she stared at lifeless Mike and cried out, "My son, how could you die? How could you leave your mother alone in this world?" Soon after her sobs, she lunged at me with fury. I dodged her attack effortlessly. "Becky, who do you think you are to quit Mike's treatment? Who do you think you are? Now that he's gone, you owe me my son. You owe me." Doris raged like a madwoman. "Did I give up? Mom? Wasn't it you who gave up?" He left coldly a strand of hair. "What nonsense. Why would I abandon my son? He's my only kid." "I could never let him go. You killed him. You told me yesterday you couldn't come up with the money to save Mike." "Today I reluctantly signed off on stopping treatment," I replied coolly. Doris's face went ghostly pale. She thought she could manipulate me, sure that even if she refused to pay, I'd find a way to save Mike. She pushed me to borrow from relatives, claiming none of hers would help her, but her perfect plan was busted because I suddenly refused to play along. You. Doris was left stammering, unable to get her story straight. "The real culprit behind Mike's death was you, Mom. Over the years, most of Mike's earnings went to you. He was struggling and you wouldn't help. If Mike hated anyone, it should be you." I shot back sarcastically. Without wasting another second, I had things to sort out like Mike's and my remaining assets, insurance payouts, and where Mike's money for his mistress went. Everything needed to be handled. I left right away. I wasn't about to deal with Mike's funeral. Mourning a man like him was pointless. When I got home, I let the renovation crew take all the valuable furniture and trashed all the fixed decor. The house wasn't mine, but the renovations were paid for by my parents. No way was I letting someone else enjoy them. Once done, I headed back to my place. My parents couldn't get why I was acting this way. They thought I should be upset with Mike dead, but I felt totally fine. In fact, kinda happy. I couldn't explain much to them, just promised I wasn't ungrateful. My folks had my back no matter what, even in my past life. When Mike's family and our relatives pushed us to despair, they never blamed me. Thinking about the humiliation my parents endured because of Mike and his crew, my hate burned even hotter. Mike didn't cause all the suffering alone. There was also Doris and Mike's mistress, Chloe. I wasn't letting any of them off the hook. Early the next day, Doris kept calling me like a maniac. After dozens of calls, I finally answered nonchalantly. "Becky, you bitch! Are you dead? Why haven't you been picking up?" Doris's screechy voice yelled from the other end. "Dead? That'd be your son, remember?" I responded. "You, Doris." She was fuming, spitting out blood. "What happened to the stuff in the house? Why is the place trashed? Did you do it or not?" "That was mine, and Mike's home. Now that Mike's gone, I decide what to do with the stuff." "It's none of your business. The house is under my name. That means it's my home. What's it got to do with you? Remember, I let you live there out of my kindness," Doris stated all high and mighty. I actually laughed out loud. Sure, Doris bought the house outright, but at least half the money came from the wages Mike sent her when we were dating. We never married, so Mike's money wasn't legally mine. But Doris refused to give a dowry, saying she was broke after buying that house. My parents only have one daughter, me. They always doted on me. They didn't want any drama over dowry, so they agreed not to take any, and even offered to pay for our home renovations. At the time, Doris kept saying the house belonged to me and Mike. She insisted she only had her name on it, but the usage rights were all ours. We could live in it, rent it out, or sell it. I was young and naive, blindly trusting Mike and his mom. They played me like a fool. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. Getting worked up over people like that, getting depressed, it's just not worth it. I don't care about the house. You can stay in it until you kick the bucket, I said coldly. Knowing Doris's nature, there was no way I'd get any part of that house, so I didn't want to waste time fighting over it. Holding on to cold, lifeless property with no one to care for you or inherit it, that's the real tragedy of life. "Are you cursing me?" Doris demanded, all fired up. I ignored her and continued. "The renovations were paid for by my family, and we bought all the appliances and furniture. Isn't it fair for me to take them when I leave?" "Becky, you ungrateful witch. Don't you have any conscience? I paid for that house. Now that my son's in trouble, you're turning your back on us? Aren't you scared of getting struck by lightning?" "Nope, because the one who might get zapped isn't me. Some folks already got their comeuppance, didn't they?" I retorted sarcastically. "What did you say? Are you saying my son's death was payback? Shouldn't you already know?" "Listen here, Becky. My son's dead, and you won't have a good life either." Doris abruptly hung up. I glanced at my phone and chuckled coldly. Who's scared of who now? I'd be worried if she didn't keep digging her own grave. That afternoon, my mom and dad were watching TV in the living room when their expressions suddenly changed. They love watching our local channel's social news shows, usually full of neighborhood gossip. "Becky, look." My mom called to me nervously. I was also in the living room, sending a message to the insurance company to ask about Mike's car accident settlement. Since Mike was mainly at fault, the payout wouldn't be much. Hearing my mom's voice, I looked up to see Doris on the TV screen. She was being interviewed by reporters, and the news headline at the bottom left read, "After son's car accident, wife refused resuscitation and ransacked home. Son died the day before yesterday. Asterisk, asterisk. His wife was scared of spending money, refused to save him, and let him die in the hospital. Now she isn't even attending his funeral. I'm helpless, so I came to you for help," Doris said, tears streaming down her face, making her look like a pitiful old lady, really tugging at some sympathy. "Is it because you feel guilty you didn't show up?" the reporter asked. "No," she replied. Doris sobbed, tears practically flowing after the accident. She wanted the house. The house was bought with my life savings under my name, and because I didn't agree to give it to her, she turned against us. She moved all the furniture and appliances out and trashed the place. The more Doris talked, the more she cried, truly bawling her eyes out. The reporter offered some comfort, then asked, "What do you want us to help you with today?" "I want my son's wife to handle his funeral and to restore the home's furnishings and appliances." "Okay, we'll reach out to you," the reporter replied. A moment later, my phone rang. At the same time, so did my parents' phones. Each of my parents took a call. My mom: "It's not what you think. Our Becky would never do such a thing. It's a misunderstanding." My dad: "You know what kind of person Becky is, right? This is Mike's family deliberately trying to slander Becky. Say one more bad word about Becky, and we won't be family anymore." Clearly, Doris's actions had already caused a social ripple. No need to guess. My reputation was in the gutter. I felt a sting of irony. In my past life, Mike's family ruined me with debt, stripping my life bare. Do they want to wreck me again through social media this time? Laughable. She really thinks karma isn't watching? Soon enough, she'd learn that what goes around comes around. After 2 calls from the reporters, I picked up. "Hello." "Hi, Becky, we're from the news media team. We saw the broadcast. I'm on my way to Mike's Memorial Hall now." With that, I hung up. Making a scene? I can play that game too. I put my phone down, packed up, and got ready to leave. "Becky, are you really going?" My parents looked at me incredulously. Anyone could see nothing good awaited me outside. With Doris stirring things up, I'd become the villain, surely to be shamed. "Relax, I can handle it," I reassured them. "I'll go with you. I can't let you handle this alone." My dad refused to let me face it by myself. "There's TV coverage. They won't mess with me," I said. "Just watch me go live on the news." No need for them to stress over me. My mom had high blood pressure and my dad was a hothead. In any fight, they might hurt themselves. It wasn't worth the risk. I opened the front door. Several neighbors crowded the entrance. Seeing me, they quickly shuffled away. As they moved, the gossipy elderly women muttered a few words. "That's the wicked woman. Heartless," they said. "So much for being an educated family. How'd they raise someone so rude? That's what you call a disgrace." The anger inside me flared up. My parents were too polite, letting Mike's family push them around. I didn't bother defending myself. The truth would soon come out. I hopped in a cab and headed to the venue. There were quite a few people at the hall. Guess what? A TV crew was involved, drawing not just family, but curious onlookers. As soon as I entered, the place buzzed. "Becky, you actually dared to show up? How could you? If it weren't for you, Mike wouldn't be dead. Weren't you going to let Mike go without paying your respects until his mom went to the media?" Mike's relatives all clamored, spitting out their accusations. In reality, Mike's family wasn't close to them. Mike's dad passed away early, and with Doris's odd temper, Mike's relatives disliked her. Today's gathering was likely due to the TV cameras and the fact that you can't speak ill of the deceased. I noticed Mike's coffin and then saw Mike's lover, Chloe, a colleague of his. Chloe noticed my stare and her eyes flickered. Right now, Chloe and Mike were still in an underground relationship. It wasn't out in the open. When they faced me, they were a bit sneaky, not bold like later when they called me a hen that can't lay eggs. I'd been married to Mike for 3 years, and we didn't have kids, but it wasn't because of me. It was his low sperm count making it tough to get pregnant. The doctor suggested IVF, but it was expensive, and Doris wasn't keen. Plus, she somehow believed IVF babies weren't good. The doctor said it was difficult, not impossible. So Doris insisted we try naturally first and worry about it when we got older. Eventually, there was a pregnancy, but it wasn't me. It was Chloe. I can still vividly remember Doris's arrogant demeanor after Chloe got pregnant, claiming her son had no issues. The more I think about it, the more ridiculous it seems. So, unable to hold back, I walked over to Chloe. Slap? Right in front of everyone, I gave her a smack. Chloe was stunned, and a bunch of Mike's colleagues were in the memorial hall too, shocked by what I did. "What the hell did you do that for?" Doris stood in front of Chloe, angrily asking. Mike confided everything to his mom, so Doris knew about his affair. In fact, she even supported it, saying it's normal for men to have women on the side, and if they can get one pregnant, it's a huge win. "I did it because I wanted to," I said. I said sarcastically. "What, do I need to pick a date to slap the mistress? What nonsense are you talking about?" Doris snapped. "My son is dead, and you're still slandering him. Becky, Have you no shame? Doris's breakdown stirred everyone else. Becky, haven't you had enough? There are so many folks here today. Can you have some decency? You came to make amends, not act all high and mighty. Have some shame. I've never seen such shamelessness. Did your dad raise you like this? Journalists from the TV station rushed over. Luckily, the media stepped in, or I'd really be speechless. Miss Becky, don't you think your actions today were a bit inappropriate? Your husband just passed, and instead of mourning, you're causing a scene. The reporter pushed the mic at me. Nope, don't think so, I stated bluntly. Becky, how can you be so disgraceful? My son must have been blind to choose you. He died so tragically. So tragically. Doris cried her heart out. Everyone went to comfort her, blaming me. Chloe stood crying pitifully beside her. Is there a misunderstanding with your husband or Doris? The reporter calmly tried to reason. No misunderstanding, it's a fact, I said coldly. My husband Mike cheated during our marriage with her. I pointed at Chloe. You're lying. Mike and I were just colleagues, nothing more. Nothing more? Really? I sneered. Why did Mike crash his car and die then? Thanks to you, you can't just blame me for things I didn't do. Chloe protested through tears, playing the victim, but actually she felt guilty and didn't dare go wild. Becky, I'm Mike's boss, and Chloe's too. I can vouch for their innocence, I said. Mike's direct boss stepped up. See, even the boss says they're clean, and here you are with nonsense. Doris rushed in to defend. Stealth and deceit. The boss wouldn't know, would he? You weren't with them every second, right? I questioned the boss. The boss was at a loss, then said, regardless, you ought to have evidence before accusing. Oh, there's evidence, all right. I glanced at Chloe. Her body slightly trembled. She couldn't have imagined being exposed in public. They kept their secret well. Nobody but Doris knew. If I hadn't lived again, I wouldn't know either. Finding out the truth later hit me like a bolt from the blue. I don't know what I did to make you think this way. Chloe cut in before I could speak. I don't want to disrupt Mike's funeral. If you don't want me here, I'll leave. With that, Chloe started to go. I stopped her feeling guilty. I simply don't want to make things unpleasant for everyone. I'm just an insignificant nobody here. Insignificant? You who caused Mike's death? I emphasized each word clearly. Even if you're making excuses for not saving Mike, you can't slander me. Chloe blushed, retorting, I hadn't replied yet. The boss stepped in. Enough, Becky. I know Mike and Chloe's characters. No matter what you claim, I won't believe it. Then, comforting Chloe, I'll escort you out. This is Mike's phone. It has the message exchanges between Mike and Chloe. I took out Mike's phone. The moment I did, I saw Chloe's face turn pale as a ghost. To keep it fair, let's have the impartial TV reporter review what they've both said. I handed the phone to the reporter. Reporters love a juicy scoop. She eagerly took the phone and scanned through the messages. Her face visibly changed. After a few moments, she called over the cameraman. Hey, quickly capture this. Capture what? Doris raged. Because she knew about Mike and Chloe's affair, if it got out, her son keeping a mistress would become public. I grabbed the phone just before Doris could. Becky, give back my son's phone, Doris demanded. So you knew about Mike's mistress, didn't you? I mocked. What? I know nothing. The chats say differently. They show you agreed even that you liked her, not me. I exposed her lie. I did not. You saw, right? I asked the reporter. Yes, she nodded. Doris flushed red. She snapped, leave, get out. I don't need your help. Just leave me alone. We can't leave now. Things are just getting good. Why stop here, Mom? I taunted. Becky, you bitch, my son's dead. You want me dead too? I'll kill you. Mom, cameras are rolling. You touch me, that's assault. You'll do time. You, Doris glared, turning to family. Help me kick her out. I don't want her here. Mom, that's just too much. Afraid to commit a crime yourself? You want them to? You can't be that wicked. Any restless relatives calmed down, and their annoyance at Doris grew. I didn't mean it like that, Doris tried to explain. I couldn't be bothered with her nonsense anymore. I snapped back. Mom, do you know how Mike died? Mike died because of you. You gave up on trying to save him. It's your fault. Doris was still adamant that it was my fault. Mike was rushing to buy a Valentine's Day gift for Chloe when he got into the accident. He was on the phone with Chloe when it happened. If Chloe hadn't distracted him, he wouldn't have run the red light and gotten hit by a truck. What? Doris looked at me in disbelief. Here are Mike and Chloe's last chat records, where Chloe demands a gift from Mike. He went out to buy her a gold necklace. This is Mike's last call, and the call duration matches exactly the time of his accident. I turned my phone towards Doris to show her. Doris's face changed dramatically after seeing the information. She turned and shot Chloe a seething glare. Chloe, caught red-handed, was mortified. Who are you to make my son buy you gifts, you homewrecker? Give me back my son. Doris charged at Chloe, pulling her hair and causing a scene. The situation descended into chaos. No one stepped in to stop it. The TV reporters just kept filming, hungry for the drama. He wanted to buy it himself. It wasn't like I forced him. He said he loved me and insisted on getting me a gift. What was I supposed to do? Chloe blurted out in desperation. She just admitted to being the mistress. I noticed Chloe's boss standing nearby, his face ashen. This was a public embarrassment for him. Of course, Doris was the most agitated. How dare you say something like that? My son is dead, and you're still being so callous. Is it my fault your son died? If anyone's to blame, it's Becky for not saving him. Chloe tried to shift the blame onto me. Becky, did you purposely not save him because you found out Mike didn't love you anymore? No matter what, it's a life. How could you be so heartless? Chloe's shamelessness was off the charts. No wonder Chloe managed to win over Doris. I've never had Doris's approval all these years. Apparently, after Chloe married Mike, Doris poured out all her savings to buy a new house for them under Mike and Chloe's names. And upon hearing what Chloe said, Doris immediately pointed her rage at me. Becky, did you really refuse to save Mike just because he was seeing someone else? How could you be so cruel? No matter what, you shouldn't treat Mike like this. This is murder. Doris was fuming, looking like she wanted to strangle me. People around us started buzzing with gossip. Some voices said, true, even if it was like that, you shouldn't have refused to save him. It's ruthless. Others said, isn't it ironic? A husband gets into an accident buying gifts for his mistress, and the wife is supposed to save the day? Moral pressure much? The ones saying you should save him were mostly the older folks. The younger ones sided more with not saving him. I calmly told Doris, Mom, I've already told you before it wasn't me who refused to save Mike. It was you. Mike is my only son. How could I possibly do that? At the time, the doctor said saving him might cost hundreds of thousands, and there was a high chance he could end up in a vegetative state. And you outright said you had no money. I cut her off. If you didn't have money, how could I? How could you not have money? You've been married to Mike for 3 years and have no savings? Even if you don't, couldn't you borrow some? Doris shamelessly retorted. In these 3 years, if Mike had given me even a cent, I'd have savings. I raised my voice. And all these years, hasn't all of Mike's money gone either to you or spent on Chloe? And you're saying I could have borrowed? You had money. Why didn't you use it to save Mike? You're making things up. You're just saying nonsense. Doris stammered, her face turning red. I have proof. I smirked. Coming back to life once I've prepared well. I slowly pulled a document folder from my hand, taking out bank statements. Here are Mike's bank transactions for the past 3 years. Mike's monthly salary was nearly $20K. The first thing he did after getting paid was send money to his mom, always 60%, so every month he sent $12,000. The remaining 40%, he'd typically spend about $5K on Chloe and $3K on our household, but usually not more than $1K. The other $2K was for himself, since he always said image mattered while working for a big company. Doris looked at the long series of transactions, speechless. It was all there, nothing to dispute. Meanwhile, my salary wasn't much, only about $5K a month, but I spent it all on us. I even have monthly expense logs I kept. I wouldn't even buy myself clothes over $500, while Mike's dinner with Chloe would have cost more than that. I showed everyone my own expense records. The TV reporters were particularly enthusiastic, capturing everything. No one expected such a dramatic turn of events. So, Mike's been working for 7 or 8 years now? He gives you over $10K a year, so You must have at least $100K in the bank, right? Why didn't you use that money to save Mike? Where would I have that kind of money? I paid for your and Mike's house in full when you got married. Doris tried to dodge again. But Mike and I have been married 3 years now. The house was bought 3 years ago. You've saved quite a bit since. I borrowed money from relatives to buy the house back then. Don't I have to pay them back? Doris stubbornly argued. Is that so? I sneered. Well, all the relatives are here today. Can anyone tell me who lent my mom money for that house? All the relatives looked at each other. No one said a word. Doris started to panic. She probably never imagined the person she thought she had under control would one day put her on the spot like this. Yes, I admit I still have some savings, Doris confessed, but continued to deny the rest, insisting she never refused to pay for Mike's treatment. Mike is my only son. Why would I refuse to save him? Becky, why are you accusing me? I knew she'd never be ashamed. I remarked sharply, which is why I went to the hospital and got a copy of the video from the day you spoke to the doctor. Doris went pale. I didn't give her the chance to deny it further and played the video on my phone. Doris's shrill voice played. What? The treatment will cost tens of thousands and might not even work? He could end up a vegetable. You might want to think it over. I can't really advise beyond telling you the worst-case scenario, the doctor responded helplessly. Well, I don't have money, Doris replied bluntly. I'm not working, and I only get 1 or 2,000 in pension a month. How would I have the money? Becky, you're his wife. You make the decision. The video sent a shockwave through everyone present. 5 days, and a gate. What kind of person is this? Her own son is dying, and all she cares about is her money. The key point is she already has the money her son earned. She's just trying to dump all the responsibility onto her son's wife, right? She's got it all figured out. If her son doesn't make it, the loan is all on the daughter-in-law, and she has to pay it back herself. Talk about trying to take advantage of everything. Serves her right for getting what she deserves. How does a person like that have the nerve to go on TV and expose her daughter-in-law? Seriously, has she no shame at all? Doris was being mocked mercilessly by those around us. Her face went red and white, and she couldn't even get a word out for the longest time. Seeing her like this was really satisfying. But I wasn't satisfied yet. Everything I went through in the past life was far worse than this. I calmly continued. Doris came here today to accuse me on TV, claiming that I took things from the house and ruined the renovations. I'm here to set the record straight. She admits I'm unbalanced. Why does Mike get to have affairs? And why is Doris still supporting him? Now that Mike's dead, I can't confront him, nor do I want to argue with Doris. I just want to take back what's mine and sever ties with this family. What's mine, you ask? When we got married, all the appliances in the house were gifts from my parents. The renovations were funded by them too. But the house, it's in Doris's name, not mine. So all I could do was take my things. And let me just say, Doris mentioned she bought the house outright. So when I married Mike, there was no dowry. Most of the people here can vouch for this, right? Doris was bragging everywhere back then about how her son didn't spend a penny to get married, and the bride's family even brought a lot of stuff along. A relative immediately chimed in. I can vouch for that. Back then, she bragged everywhere about how her son didn't have to spend anything to get a wife, and the girl's family brought gifts. She even mocked me because my son spent tens of thousands to get married. I almost had a fight with my son over it. But now it seems, thank goodness, I wasn't swayed by her. Thank goodness I felt bad for the bride for having been raised by her parents and gave the dowry we promised. Otherwise, who knows, karma might have hit us instead. Heaven punished her by taking her son away. Doris was furious when the relative spoke. What the hell are you saying? She was about to hit the relative when her husband pushed her away hard. Doris staggered back several steps. Her husband coldly threatened, You lay a finger on her and I'll kill you. You! Doris was shocked. Your son's death is because of you. Not just your son, your husband too. The relative's husband spat out harshly. You! Doris was so furious she was jumping up and down, losing it completely, howling with tears. You're all bullying me, an old lady. You'll all meet bad ends. She cried and cursed like a shrew. Everyone around just watched her make a fool of herself. No one had an ounce of sympathy left. Truly revolting. And there's one more thing to clear up. Ignoring Doris, I said, Mike and I don't have kids because of Mike's infertility. It's got nothing to do with me. Here's the doctor's proof. I took it out. Enough, Becky, enough. Are you trying to prevent Mike from resting in peace? Doris screamed at me like a maniac. Yeah, does someone like him deserve to rest in peace? I was going to do IVF, but Doris said it was too costly and insisted we try naturally. And Mike died before we even conceived. Once I said this, people started buzzing again. She deserved it, really being so money-obsessed her son died and didn't even leave a child. That's karma. Heaven has justice after all, and people like this don't deserve sympathy. Doris was more collapsed than ever, screaming at everyone. Shut up. All of you shut up. No one paid her any mind. Neither did I. I continued calmly. I'm not here to attend Mike's funeral, especially since Mike died for Chloe. I'm not an angel, and I'm not that forgiving. But I'm not here just to clear things up about myself, either. There are accounts to settle. I looked at Doris and Chloe, speaking coldly. Don't blame me for hashing this out now. I plan to settle this after Mike's funeral, but since you're so anxious, I won't waste time. Before Doris and Chloe could say anything, others started to stir things up. Settle it. Let's settle it. We support you, Becky. We misunderstood you before. Say whatever you need to now while everyone's here, and we'll make sure you get justice. We can't let these two bully you. Speak up. We've got your back. A reporter approached, excitedly telling me, we're broadcasting live on TV and online. There's a huge buzz. Everyone supports you. They want you to get the justice you deserve, and our station will back you. If you need legal help, we can arrange it right away. I need it, I said without hesitation. Wait just a moment, I added. The reporter went to contact a lawyer. I knew with the TV station involved, I wouldn't be at a loss. Doris was panicking. Get out. If you want to cut ties with Mike, just leave. Chill, I'll leave once we settle everything. I don't have any accounts with you. As for the stuff you trashed at home, I'll just chalk it up to bad luck and won't hold it against you, Doris suddenly said generously. I didn't even need to retort. Someone else jumped in. How shameless can you be? Becky said herself, my parents paid for the renovation. Of course she had the right to trash it. I let her live in my house for free all these years. Doris replied, Becky married your son without asking for a dowry and even added stuff to the marriage. You not only didn't buy a house, but also have the audacity to say you let her live rent-free? I've never seen such shamelessness in my life. More and more people started mocking Doris. Doris couldn't take it. Our family matters are none of your business. We don't care about family matters, but we're sure as hell stepping in for Becky. Everyone was standing up for me. I expected Doris and Chloe to end up losing face and in a mess, but I certainly didn't expect so many people to suddenly support me. In my previous life, I was lonely and helpless. People around me either called me stupid or asked me to pay them back. It wasn't my fault, but during that time, I faced the world's greatest hostility. So when I took my own life, I really had no regrets. Right now, I'm so moved by the support from so many people. My eyes are really red, and my nose feels stuffy. I'm trying hard to keep my emotions in check. Luckily, the TV station's lawyer arrived quickly. I calmed down and announced in front of everyone, I've been married to Mike for 3 years. According to marriage law, the money we earn after marriage is joint marital property. As everyone just saw, during these 3 years of marriage, Mike gave most of our money to his mom and his lover. I turned to the lawyer and asked, can I get this money back? The lawyer answered, according to marriage law, any income earned during the marriage belongs to both spouses. If one partner gives away money to others without the other's knowledge, the wronged spouse can demand it back, provided they have proof. I do, I said. I quickly showed Mike's transfer records, a detailed account of all the money he gave them over the past 3 years. The lawyer examined it closely and nodded, saying, this can be used as valid evidence to demand repayment. All right then. I looked at Doris and said, rounded up, Mike sent you $430,000. Please have all that money returned to me soon. You must be kidding. My son's money is mine. Who are you to take my son's money? Are you crazy for money? She retorted. The law states that once a couple is married, the property is jointly owned, the lawyer explained. Who cares about the law? I gave birth to my son. Whether he's married or not, everything he has is mine. Doris snapped back. The law says that once a couple is married, the property is joint. The lawyer wanted to say more. No need to argue with her. I know Doris and her unreasonable ways. Can I just file a lawsuit? I asked. Of course you can. That includes the $120,000 Mike gave to his lover, Chloe? I asked the lawyer. Yes, the lawyer confirmed. Great. I turned to Doris and Chloe and said, within 3 days, if the money isn't in my account, we'll meet in court. You wretched woman, Becky, you dare sue me? Doris shouted furiously. Chloe, no longer calm, chimed in. That money was just what Mike wanted to give me. Why should I return it? Because of the fairness and justice of the law, I replied firmly. Chloe was speechless, her face turning bright red with anger. I'll say it once more, you have 3 days, otherwise we'll see each other in court. With that, I turned and left. I didn't want to waste more time on these two. Becky, if they don't return the money, I'll be there to support you in court, shouted a relative. Other relatives echoed the support. Yes, just let us know, we'll all be there. We want to see how arrogant these two are in front of the law. Thank you all so much. I was really touched by their kindness. Going through something once makes you realize how wonderful people's goodwill can be. Leaving the memorial hall, a reporter stopped me. Becky, our TV station can provide you with free legal assistance. If you decide to go to court, please contact us. Sure, I'll definitely reach out if I need to sue. I knew nothing in life is exactly free, and the station probably wanted to keep the news covered. But hey, it doesn't really hurt me and could expose some ugly truths. So, why not? Back home, as soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I saw a few elderly people who once slandered me standing at my door. Hey, Becky, we misunderstood you before. We didn't know you suffered this much. Don't take it to heart, said one old lady trying to be nice. We were all fooled by that awful Doris. Who knew she could be so shameless? Here's some fruit we got for you. Consider it an apology. They handed over a big bag of fruit and quickly left, still saying, Becky, we're all here to support you. I never actually blamed them. Most people are swayed by public opinion. The only two I hated were Doris and Chloe. I opened the door. My parents were waiting inside, clearly emotional when they saw me. Becky, I never imagined you suffered so much over there, my mom said, hugging me and bursting into tears. Dad's eyes were also red. It's all okay now, right? I reassured them. My daughter has always been smart and capable, Dad said, though he's not one to easily throw out compliments. Otherwise, we'd have suffered even more under Mike's mom. Just thinking about that gets me so worked up. Hearing this made me uncomfortable. In my past life, that family pushed me to suicide, and I couldn't even bear to imagine how my death affected my parents. Thank goodness none of that happened this time. 3 days later, Doris and Chloe didn't return the money. I didn't bother reminding them. I just contacted the TV station and prepared for court. 2 months later, the lawsuit against Doris and Chloe went to trial. Seeing them in court surprised me a bit. Both looked noticeably worn down. Doris, who was overweight, had lost at least 20 pounds and looked totally different. Chloe also looked rough. She used to be all about style, but today, with no makeup, her skin looked yellowish, and she seemed exhausted, lacking any of the charm she once had. I smirked a little. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised. Being targeted by internet trolls and judged by people is a nightmare I know too well. Many relatives and friends were at the court to support me, and many people online were waiting for good news. In court, my lawyer argued my case. In the end, the court ordered Chloe to fully return the $121,651 Mike spent on her and let Doris keep 20% as aid, meaning she had to return $342,162 to me. But since Mike had passed away and Doris was entitled to inherit some property, all costs, including the final insurance payout, were split. I got half as the spouse, and Doris and I split the remainder. So, Doris ended up owing me $216,708. Leaving the courtroom, I felt relieved. Everything from my past life was finally over, at least for me. Mike's gone. I got back every cent I was owed, and I restored my reputation. Now I can live the rest of my life with dignity and chase after my own happiness again. As for Doris and Chloe, their karma is just beginning. Everywhere Doris goes, people point and gossip. The real kicker is her son died, and he was her only kid. After her reputation took a hit, not a single relative sympathized with her. She's all alone. Even though she still has some money and a house, her quality of life isn't much to speak of. Later, I heard she got scammed by those selling beauty products. Those sales guys sweet-talked her, calling her mom and made her feel special. Doris ended up blowing all her cash on those products. No relatives stepped in to help, they just said she deserved to be scammed. When her money was all gone, the sellers disappeared. Doris figured it out too late that she'd been conned. She made a scene on the street, and folks just thought she was nuts. When she went to the police, they just logged it and moved on since so many elderly folks get scammed. Chances are, that money's gone for good. After that, it seems Doris developed some mental issues. She'd be out looking for her son and even made up a grandson, spending her days acting bizarrely at home. Neighbors couldn't take it anymore and called the cops. Doris got sent to a mental hospital, and that's the last anyone heard of her. As for Chloe, she's not doing any better. She got fired due to her personal problems, and people whisper about her when she goes out. Some extreme folks even sent her threats and creepy toys.